Welcome to the Whole Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you become a fat burner, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hey everybody, it's Debbie Potts with a new episode in 2018 for the Whole Athlete Podcast, and I'm happy to have a new guest on the show, someone I met at Ironman Hawaii this last year in 2017 on the swim start on the sidelines. Her name is Gwen from Texas. Hello, Gwen.
Hi, how are you, Debbie?
I am good. I was all bundled up. It's January and Seattle is, 40-something degrees. I'm freezing. So I'm looking forward to going to Hawaii in a couple of weeks. That's all I can think about. So I'm all bundled up underneath here. I have my bathrobe on my legs. So we are in January, and it's a good time to talk about triathlon training and setting goals for the year ahead. And I'm doing it for my business as well as personal life, a roadmap for 2018 ahead. And I wanted you to come on the show because we worked together last November, December, and kind of going over stuff that you learned as a triathlete last year personally, and kind of talk about what we're going to do or you're going to do differently in 2018. So kind of talk about your journey in doing triathlons, and you got into Ironmans and half Ironmans.
Sure. Well, my first Ironman was in 1990, but prior to that, I was a competitive swimmer, so I had that swimming background. And one of my friends just said, "Hey, would you like to do an Ironman?" And I'm like, "What's that?" So he talked me into it. He was a crazy French man, and
because you could swim, he wanted you to just do Ironman because you're a good swimmer.
Yeah, he did actually get a lot of pointers from me, but he helped me out, I think, way more than I helped him because I had no idea what to do on the bike, and I certainly never ran before. So he helped me a lot. And anyways, I did Ironman Canada in Penticton in 1990, and I had a great time, super fun, and I was somewhat hooked on it, but then life happens. I got pregnant with my daughter and took tons of years off, like actually 25 years until I did another Ironman. And so when I turned 50, I decided, well, I think I would like to try another Ironman. So I signed up for just a local one, actually in Oklahoma, called Redman. And just to see if I could do one before I spent the big bucks on Ironman.
Which is probably a big price difference from 25 years ago.
Oh, for sure. I mean, even Redman was expensive in my book compared to Ironman Canada. I keep saying Texas, Canada, back in 1990. But anyways, so I was hooked, and at 50, just started my journey again for Ironman. And so after Redman, I signed up for Louisville, did that one, and placed, and I was really excited. And then one of my friends said, "I think you could probably qualify for Kona if you tried." I'm like, "I don't know." Anyway, so I just signed up for another one after that. I did Texas, and then I ended up getting to do Kona in 2015. And the whole time, I'm a training person. I love Training Peaks. I'm addicted to my Training Peaks schedule. Mm-hmm. I'm obsessed with green boxes. I can't stand the red ones. And so I would train even if I was tired. I would train if I was sick, just like I did when I swam. I just trained all the time because
you were a competitive swimmer all growing up. So you're used to a high intensity workouts and competitive training schedule on top of being in school. Same with now you're a teacher. So you work full time and putting a busy triathlon schedule on top of that. So that was normal to you to be busy.
Very busy and standing all the time and just never really resting. I didn't know until now. Now I know what resting really is. My new life in 2018 is now with more rest. But so yeah, I was very driven. I still am very driven, and I have to keep myself in check all the time. But so my schedule was just really 15 to 20 hours a week of exercise, training, plus going to work and standing all day. I'm a fifth grade teacher, so of course I have high energy kids, so I'm spending lots of energy. It's not like I'm just sitting all day long. So it was a lot on my body. I started breaking down. I've had plantar fasciitis. I've had PRP in my right leg twice. I've had shoulder injuries. I've had all sorts of problems with my overtraining, and I ignored it a lot because I had a race schedule I wanted to continue. And it just so happens that the people I hang out with are just like me. So I have a community of people who are like me, who really keep the other in check. We all race all the time when we run. We race all the time when we swim and bike. So I think, I know for me, I overdid myself to the point where leading up to this past August, I did the Boulder half and did a PR for me, and ended up 2 weeks later not even able to ride my bike, not able to run. I was in a very bad spot with Kona coming in October. I was shut down. So I didn't know what to do. I went to all sorts of doctors. They couldn't find anything wrong with me. I've had MRIs, MRAs, body scans, and basically nobody could find anything wrong with me except for my hips are tight, and I'm a little bit old to be following the schedule that I was doing. And
you're only 50. You're not old though. You're only 50, what, 52? 54.
I just
That's
turned
not old.
54. But, well, I don't know. That's what I was told by a doctor, that I'm too old to be running this far, keeping up this schedule. So anyways, I didn't know what to do. So of course I'd qualified for Kona, and I had my tickets. So I was having to go. So I went to Kona and cried on the sidelines, which is where I met you. So then, with nobody being able to give me any answers, the words that came out of your mouth were very soothing in that I can beat this, whatever it is, and there's probably an answer somewhere in my nutrition, which is what I don't want to hear, but I wanted to hear something. So with working with you, and I don't know, just talking it out, meeting with you, looking at my nutrition, looking at my training, and I finally realized, through talking to you, of course, that I was doing way too much. And I broke myself in 2017. I really did. So
it's accumulated probably, as well as most people. In my own story in Life is Not a Race Book, is that we tend to, ignore the red flags, as we've discussed. And I think a lot of us type A competitive triathletes are trying to get to Kona, and, even runners trying to get to Boston Marathon. We overreach, and we end up ignoring all those other little red flags at saying when to rest, when to take a day off, when to modify your workout or reschedule sessions. But as you said, you don't like the did not finish workout on your training peaks. And so do you find that you ignored a lot of those signals looking back now? Did you feel those days that you're like, oh, I don't feel like I should be doing this, but anyways, I'm going to, move over and finish it?
Absolutely. I would do that all the time. And it gets so bad that in the summer, I'm a teacher, so I have the summers off. So really, I don't start ramping up until May, June. So in the summer, I'm able to take a nap. I mean, my body would naturally just say, okay, it's time for a nap. And I would go take a nap in between my training sessions. But when school hit, and I still had 3 or 4 weeks, or maybe more, if I did a late fall race, I was dead trying to keep up with everything. And so really, that's when my season tends to fall apart, was when I can't rest. So I know when to rest, and if I had the time, because when I was teaching, I didn't have the time, but in the summer I did. So I could listen to my body, but then when I went to work, I ignored my body telling me. I knew it was tired. I knew I was falling apart, but I ignored it, and I just push on.
Well, I think it's often when we don't have, we don't have the opportunities to have all day and not have to go to work. And you got the luxury of being a somewhat professional athlete and being able to nap and rest and get massage and treatment and then go do a second workout instead of being in a busy, stressful job all day and having that, going from the time you wake up in the morning until we hit the bed at night, we're going nonstop and not having any rest breaks in there and taking a little siesta. And I think that's what happens when we do triathlons. You're often putting in your workouts morning, lunch, and after work. And then you have family life too. And it's hard to juggle all of that and get 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night.
Right. And you had mentioned before that I was switched on. Like I can totally tell how I was always switched on and going and going and going. And now that I have this, I can tell the difference.
You can feel it when you're on or off. I think you kind of,
so I looked at how tired I really was and didn't realize it.
Mm-hmm. And I think, and sadly, which is why I want you to share a story today, because I think a lot of people can relate because it's similar to my story. And that's why I wrote a book on it, just not to, I wasn't sharing just to write my memoirs or anything or brag about my race success. It was more to learn from my lessons so you don't have to spend, years recovering from the damage I did. Because I think we ignore so much, as we said, of those red flags, and we continue on until you really get to that rock bottom point, as I did, that, I couldn't move, couldn't pedal, I could not even have a choice to exercise or not. It was not happening. And, we're on the mission to prevent that. I am on the mission to help other people not get to that point. So if you can see what those red flags are, and I try to share them in my book, okay, here's a red flag for me. It might be different for everybody, but learning about yourself. So that's what, journaling and writing down your race reports and looking back at your training peaks and looking back at your races last 1 to 3 years. Have you noticed a pattern that you found each year, or every season, that you could change or improve?
Absolutely. I was always injured by about October through January. I was injured with PRP, or I had some sort of muscle fatigue, or I was too tight. My calves were usually the biggest problem, or I would burn out my Achilles, so I would have PRP and be on the couch until January. So this went on for literally 5 years, where I'd race really hard, and then by October, November-ish, sometimes I would even sign up for, I'm in shape, I'm going to sign up for a marathon in the late fall. And then I would be injured after the marathon. And then I would be depressed, sitting on the couch, wondering what I did. Why would I do that? I was in such great shape. And so I just kept on going because I wanted to continue to stay in great shape and push through. And then I would start the season off rested, because I have to have a forced rest, like you said, sitting on the couch with my feet up because I had PRP. And then in January, I would hit it really hard. I would go, oh my gosh, I'm behind. Now I need to be running 10 miles a week. And so I would just go from zero couch to 10 miles a week. I mean, it was really crazy. So then I would repeat that same pattern the next year. And it may not be my Achilles that year. It would be something else that's injured, my hips or my lower back or something. So that went on for 5 years.
So a few things that, you can share as you wish, but to talk about your training schedule, and if you did heart rate training in that, and then we've talked a lot about the maffetone, the max aerobic function, which is 180 minus your age plus 5 or minus 5, depending on your health. And then the strength training, as we've talked about. Personally, if we're adding in that strength training, but including stability training, core training, mobility training, because as you're saying, your hips are so sore and so tight, and our external hip rotation gets to be really limited. And so think about our performance running and our ability to generate force in the bike and swimming. We start to get all these little nags, or some niggles people call them, that I think a lot of it, if we worked on not cutting that strength training, mobility, flexibility, strength, or core work out, we've talked about 15, 20 minutes twice a week can help. So talk a little bit about your training, then we'll get into nutrition being a sugar burner versus a fat burner.
Right. Well, I never really did any mobility training. I did straight strength training before I met you, I would go and hit it hard in the gym.
Like heavy weights or machines?
Lightweights, like 3 sets of 15 on a moderate weight. Because I'm a swimmer, so I always thought, shoulders need to hit it hard. And so I probably did lift too much weight. I certainly don't do that right now. But old me would go in there and knock it out in an hour, my entire body, twice a week. Plus, in addition to that, all of the swimming, biking, and running. So no day was really off. I had a Monday or a Friday swim day, and that was considered my off day. So I would work out 7 days a week.
And your swim workouts were hard, though. You're a competitive swimmer. So you said, you're in the lane with the fast people like Mark Allen. We just did a great podcast on that. Like, how do you not be competitive and swim with a lower heart rate? But if your background's racing, swimming.
Right, absolutely. And so I won't even be seen in a lane with people who aren't collegiate swimmers. I mean, that's not going to happen. And so, like, for me,
beneath you.
I heard that podcast and I laughed because I'm like, there's no way I'm moving to a lower lane. Like,
my pride.
That's so mean. But it would be really hard for me to do that. But I would do it. At this point, I'm going to do anything I can. But anyway, so I never even heard of math training. I've never heard of low heart rate. I mean, I did work out by heart rate and I did work out by power, but I would ignore my coach. My coach might keep your heart rate below 140 and for like a 13-mile run or whatever. And I wouldn't do it. I would maybe start out below 140, but then later when I got tired, it went up. And I would look at it and go, oh, I'm still doing a 9-minute pace. I'm really happy. And I would ignore it. And that happened all the time. And then my coach might put on a bike day, keep your heart rate below whatever, 130, but keep it at this power, in this power range. And I would ignore the heart rate and just do the power. So because I was with people and I wanted to keep up and I was, I just wanted to be social. And so I burned myself out in every workout. I swam hard, I biked hard, I ran hard all the time.
Well, I think a lot of people do that. That's what, one of the main questions with Mark Allen the other week was on, people do winter training here and they do those cycle classes. And if it's by power, they're not looking at heart rate. So they're going these high power or higher watts and just blowing their legs up and going super high heart rate when it's off season and early season. We should be building our endurance, but also strength training. So it's, I think it's really common. And that's why I wanted to have a podcast with him about that and talk to you about it. Cause it's so hard when you have training partners. How do you train by your heart rate and keep the heart rate down? And when you're a competitive person, do you have to drop your workout partners or you find new ones or, train with people that are starting so then you can be going an easy pace and it might be,
right,
similar to theirs. So it's a tough one.
Right. I'm really struggling with it right now because I'm trying to do the MAP heart rate and for me, it's like 126 to 130. So it's pretty darn low. And all my friends, of course, they're usually guys and they're always faster than me. And I'm not even running with them right now. Not at all.
Well, why don't you convert them though?
Well, a couple of them are training for a marathon. And so they're in their 40s and they're doing a great job. They're fast. Like, I'm not even going to hang with them. Not even on a slow day. So I'm running by myself right now and it's fine. It's probably good for me. It's therapeutic for me to just do the right thing for once. Just do the right thing.
Well, that's what I think when you're with people all day and you're talking to people, I find a run once or twice a week by myself is very helpful. And I stopped listening to music because my iPhone's too big to carry and I ruin all the iPods because of sweating. So I haven't even been running with a podcast anymore, even though it's how I would catch up listening to podcasts on my run. But, an iPhone on my arm is not going to happen or they're just too big to carry. And so I find, you force yourself to just reflect on life and solve your areas of opportunity on your run instead of, listening to anything or having a friend with you. But I think it's great to have workout partners and I love that as well. But I think once or twice a week by myself is really good therapy session.
Yeah. And I want to go back to kind of clarify, I live in Houston, Texas. So our season, like you live up north and you have, it's winter, I can't go outside. And down here, though, I mean, we start racing in Texas. You can sign up for a triathlon in March. I mean, there are races so early. And that's another thing that people living maybe Florida here, Texas, we get caught up in. We can sign up for races all year. So it's really hard to have that downtime because even now, a lot of my friends are signing up for the 70.3 in Galveston. And they're like, Gwen, come do it. Come do it. I'm like, oh my gosh, if I signed up for that, I would be freaking out that I'm way behind. And I am. I wouldn't even be ready. But so this is a difficult thing living somewhere where it doesn't snow and it's beautiful all the time and you can train and race.
Mm-hmm. I always think that we're going to Carlsbad this weekend I've done this for years, client trip there to get people to walk or run the half marathon and the full marathon this weekend in January every year. So keep in mind, everyone, third week in January every year, it's Carlsbad. It's wonderful because it's along the ocean and I just love it in January to go there. But I see these people riding their bikes and they're in their winter gear and it's 65 degrees and I think it's so warm. But I always think of that same thing. There's no off season. For me, it's not like it's really cold up here in Seattle in the wintertime, but it's to me an excuse to not ride my bike for a couple months outside because, it is draining after a while riding your bike 4 days, 3 days a week. I love to take it. My excuse is I can't ride my bike. It's too icy or slippery outside because leaves or whatnot on the ground. So I was have December, January, I'm not having to ride. And then February, I'll be, okay, let's get in there at least twice a week on the road. But, it is a good point that when you're in a season or live in a town that has nice weather all year long, you don't have that little personal excuse that you don't have to train all season. But I think you need that mental break. I don't know if people don't stop for a month or 2 or 3 months and get off their regular routine of swim, bike, run 3 of 4 workouts a week of each.
Right. And Mark Allen mentioned in your last podcast about deconditioning.
Yes.
I didn't even know what that was. I mean, now I get, I am definitely deconditioned. I gained a few pounds but it does make a difference. Now I'm fired up and I'm ready to get back in shape because I've literally struggled for since really mid-August to just figure out my health and get everything, really my nutrition, my head on right because I was depressed after Kona, really sad all the time. So I've had to really deal with my whole body to get it right. And so I think now I'm kind of ready to go. But I got to hold myself back.
So let's talk about the other topic that you really felt, I think you learned a lot of, and it created a lot of awareness on your body aches and pains is your nutrition. And you really were a great student in following, kind of switching up what was more of a higher carbohydrate, typical athlete's diet to more of the experimenting with foods that cause inflammation and possible leaky gut, possible gut infection. I mean, we just tend to take out foods that might be irritable and decrease the sugars and the processed foods and the carbohydrates. And talk a little bit what you discovered of what you were eating that you thought and is healthy, but how it changed. You right away felt a big difference. So share that story of what you'd like to share with others to learn from your experience.
Absolutely. I did the 5-day detox and then started the keto diet. And I did that really strictly for the 21 days. And, I had the keto flu that you had mentioned. I felt really kind of sick the 5th or 6th day. I started feeling really sick, headaches, because I never in my life have gone without sugar, ever. I am a swimmer. I eat whatever I want all the time. So I've always lived on carbs and lots of sugar. It's embarrassing how much sugar I eat.
And you're skinny, you're tiny, you're not overweight, but you kind of think you can get away with whatever you want because you're lean and mean, athletic.
I hang out around 125 and I've always been there, always been able to eat what I want. But until this year, so my hips were really bad. And of course I couldn't race. And then I met you and we talked about nutrition. And so I started the keto, and with really literally within the first week, my hip pain went away. And this was nothing from any doctor. It wasn't my physical therapist that made the pain go away. He helped because he got into my psoas. But really, I think it was the inflammation I had on my body from the inside that I was completely unaware of. And so that is what keeps me on keto, is I'm so afraid to go back to that inflammation inside my body. I had no idea how bad off I really was. And I think a lot of my hip problems were due to my eating habits, my bad eating habits. So I've stayed on keto. It's been hard through Christmas, was really hard. And I have cheated. I think I told you that I went out I ate sushi and had literally 3 bites of rice with some soy sauce and had a headache that night that was horrible. So rice is something that triggers. Corn is bad for me. Yeah. Corn was really bad. Things with, wheat is, so like bread is bad. I had some potatoes that didn't really bother me. Sweet potatoes are totally fine. But I think you do have to, when you reintroduce or when you kind of cheat, I know you don't want to call it cheating, but when you kind of veer off your path, and you introduce those things, then you realize, wow. And for me, I get a headache. And I read that, and it's true. Now I had some cookies over the Christmas time, and my stomach hurt from like a lot of sugar.
Flour too.
Maybe it was the flour too. Yeah. But man, I've always been on a sugar high, because people go, don't you notice a sugar high and low? I go, no, I eat so much sugar, I'm always on a high. I mean, people go, hey, there's donuts in the lounge, and I'm running to the donuts.
And people are probably mad at you because you don't get fat.
And now they're like, there's cake in the lounge, Gwen. I'm like, don't tell me. And they're like, what? Thank you, piece. I'm like, don't. I can't.
Well, you really committed to the phase 1, which I call the 5-day detox and reset, that I'm actually doing right this week with some clients in my studio. But then phase 2 is, I call the 21-day, kind of more of a reset. And then you're on to phase 3 that I call the transformation phase, that you go into that 80-20 more. Some people call it cyclical keto. And I don't like calling it keto. It's just eating more low carb, higher healthy fats and moderate protein, but the right amount for you to what we keep talking about, balancing that blood sugar, because we want to avoid the insulin surges. And if we can do that, we are going to teach the body to use fat for fuel and get that fuel to be our main source, not have to eat 3 meals a day plus 6 snacks to keep our metabolism going and keep our body just using sugar for fuel. And I kind of shared my own personal story in the Life is Not a Race book about my whole experience dieting over the years, and finally, figuring out, how am I supposed to use this fat when I started doing these long bike rides when we'd eat Cliff Bars, which are, 50, 60 grams of carbohydrates in a bar. And then finally just experimented, and I ended up sleeping at a tree until someone gave me a bar to come back to life. But you can't just do it like that. It's got to be a steady kind of a change and transition time. But it's really interesting to see you as I'm sure many other athletes, endurance athletes, would do the same, but you commit to it, and everybody's different and what your side effects are. You're a lot like me, how I get headaches. So it's kind of a motivator to not eat something because I know I'm going to feel horrible afterwards. But talk about the inflammation in your body, because that's what was fascinating to me, is how your pains and injuries that you've had since August that debilitated you from racing and doing Kona you felt a huge difference from nutritional therapy.
And you find the motivation that keeps you on the right track of your eating habits. And that's exactly it, because I can't wait to talk about 2018, what I can do eating right, because I've always eaten tons of sugar. So I'm really excited to see what's going to happen this year with me eating healthy, choosing the right foods to fuel my body, because I never really thought of my body as like my machine. But I thought, I'm a blessed athlete, lucky me, I get to eat whatever I want. I've never dealt with weight issues. So I just never thought of it like, wow, I have inflammation on the inside of my body that I've got to watch out for. So I'm excited to see, and that does keep me on track, is just, I don't know. I'm so scared to go back to hurting and feeling the way I did.
Well,
And
you had your common story, I think, is what you did usually September to January is recover from injury. And that was interesting to me how you shared earlier that you'd have the same cycle every year. You'd train hard, race, and then off season is recovery from all the injuries. And we shouldn't have to feel that way. And that's kind of the Maffetone story and the heart rate, doing the lower heart rate training, what Mark Allen does with our training. And I think a lot of people learn it the hard way is like, oh my gosh, I'm not supposed to be injured. I'm not supposed to be increasing my age and feeling like I have to, use railings to go up the stairs and feel like you can't get off the floor anymore because you're training. And, I was talking about slowing the aging process down, not speeding it up.
Right. And you can kind of I see people who are triathletes my age even, and they look really old.
Yes.
And I don't
That's amazing.
Like that. I really don't. I mean, I really do want to live a healthy lifestyle. It is hard to avoid the donuts. It is hard when you're used to eating like that. And watching the pros in Kona and seeing how did they do it? Like, I know I've done Kona. It's super hard. And I don't know how you can eat on that course without being blown around. And so my goal is to maybe someday get back if I'm lucky. Or any windy course or technical course where you're shifting, I would like to not have to eat that much.
Yeah, I know.
So that's another goal.
Yeah, I think you will. And, talk about 2018, you're saying your goals, you're going to do some races in Ironman. Your goal is to qualify for Hawaii again and race it, not stand there and watch the swim start. I've been there before. I'm so with you on crying at the sidelines. I've done that before when I fell off my bike a month before the race and had to stand there. And it's painful, but to get back there, you have that drive and that passion to qualify again and get to that finish line in Kona. And I think that makes it more motivating to stick with what you've learned and more aware of your red flags and how you're going to communicate with your coach and be honest with them and have that training program that works for you and the nutrition program that works for you.
Yes. So I lied to my coach all the time. And he's a wonderful person and a great coach, but he would ask me how I'm doing, and oftentimes in front of other people. And I would say, I'm great, I'm fine. I mean, I would lie all the time I wouldn't tell him my Achilles was tight because I didn't want him to reduce my workouts because I felt like people in my age group, they're probably doing as much or more than me, and I need to be doing as much as them, which was now I know is probably a lie. And nobody told me that. I just thought that. So, so I'm going to do that differently. I'm not going to lie to my coach anymore. I'm going to be honest, which is hard. I mean, I'm going to stick to I rode 2 hours on Saturday and my heart rate was supposed to be 120. And literally I was going 16 miles an hour. But
we don't look at that. Remember, we're base training. We don't look at the pace.
I didn't even look at the pace, but the person who was drafting behind me said, we're going 16 miles an hour. I'm like, go around me.
Yeah.
I'm doing my own thing now. Anyway, so that was really hard. I'm like, 16 miles
an hour. Tell them to stop drafting anyways. It shouldn't be drafting. It's 3 bike lengths apart.
Don't even get me started. But anyway, so that's changing. My race schedule is very different. I really had stopped doing Olympic distances a long time ago. Back in the 90s, I did them. And so I haven't signed up, but I'm going to do an Olympic distance. I'm going to do a couple of 10Ks, which is really different, just to be fun. And those are probably good for me because I'm not a runner. So I'm not going to go out there and go crazy. I'm going to go, it's okay to not win because I'm not a runner.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun. I'm trying to keep it really light. You had a lot of good ideas about doing the 10Ks and doing a half marathon. And then I'm going to do Buffalo Springs, which is in June. That's a half Ironman. And then Wisconsin. And Wisconsin's very technical. And I actually, quite frankly, don't think I can qualify there because it's not.
Stop that negative programming. We don't do that. Delete. You say, I'm going to believe. I believe in the power. I can do it.
I chose a race that's best for my schedule for being a teacher. And so that takes a lot of pressure off and I feel really good about it. So we'll see what happens. I'll keep you posted, but I'm excited about my season. I'm going to try and do a lot of things right this time instead of just be a maniac all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I always category A races, your B races, and C races are like your 10Ks and the half marathons are just good speed workouts, tempo and practice. So that's great. And I think experimenting, with, I suggested experiment with generation, you can, and you have the challenge because you can't do nuts. So no nut butter, or that a lot of the bars all have nuts in them. So, finding some fuel source for you. And I think that's more an advantage to learn how to be more fat adapted and metabolically efficient in your training and racing. So you don't have to depend on all these gels, which cause a lot of people's stomach pains and digestive issues.
Right.
So I think, finding fuel source that works for you, that has that steady flow of energy and not have to eat so much.
Yeah, I'm happy to report that the UCAN, I tried it for the first time and it did help. It helped a lot. So I feel really good. That's all I had. The whole was more like 2.5 hours, more 2:10. Yeah. So yeah, I feel really good I think that's going to be fine for me.
Great. Yeah. And then after a while, 2 hours, I just have bottled water with some sea salt in it, and you don't need that much. And I like having my fat coffee before I do a bike ride or a longer one, because I don't like eating food, and I can't run either with food in my stomach. So it's nice not to have to eat and be fasted and be able to go for a run and not have like full belly, because I can't go eat vegetables and protein and then go or work out. So it is easier to go in a fasted state when needed, or have a UCAN or have a fat coffee before.
Right. That's the other thing I'm amazed at, is how long I can go now without feeling hungry. I mean, I'm not kidding you. I used to eat about every hour on the hour. I mean, I just can't believe how long I can go without eating. It's crazy.
We did a broth fast. We're doing a broth fast this week, and it's amazing teaching people how, you can have the bone broth, and I put some turmeric and cayenne pepper and ginger in it. And it's like, you know what? It keeps you full and you don't have any appetite. And if I do to prove it, I often curbs any appetite. I've been trying this Perfect Keto collagen, and it has MCT and powder, and it's chocolate. So it's like I'm drinking hot chocolate and I have that. And it's like, I don't even think of food. You don't have any cravings. It's crazy to do that sometimes.
Yeah, it is. It's great.
Good.
And I've found some good, like beef jerky. You and I, we don't like beef. I hate
the Nick sticks.
Some beef jerky without any preservatives in them and no sugar. I forget what they're called.
The Nick sticks, I found those ones. You try those?
I didn't like those. My husband liked those. I don't like those, but beef jerky, and I don't really like beef. I found them online on Amazon without any nitrates or anything. And they're really good. They're like good ingredients, vinegar, they're air dried. So I have those when I'm hungry at work.
Good. Well, thanks so much for sharing your story. I really wanted you to open up and share what we went through last month, not to talk about our program, but just how I think your story really, so many people can relate to, and it'll help other people look at how they're going to train and race and approach 2018 as a triathlete. I think a lot of people can learn from both of our experiences, and hopefully we can prevent people from getting that adrenal syndrome and have that HPA axis dysregulation. And because once you hit that fatigue, then it gets to exhaustion, your hormones the hormone cascade happens, and all this disruption in your body goes on. So as I always say, I have liver, gallbladder issues, not functioning fully, and then have leaky gut and gut inflammation. I mean, there's so many things, and a lot of it just all comes back from our adrenal dysregulation, or starts up here in the hypothalamus, telling pituitary gland, which tells adrenal glands, and that's what that HPA axis is, and causes this whole cascade of events. So that's kind of why I want to help more athletes prevent that, because you talk to anybody, you just hear and see it all the time. People even that aren't even athletes, I see it every day. So it's that chronic busyness, and when triathletes add in a 20-hour workout schedule on top of a busy life schedule and a work schedule, it's tough. And we want to race this year, and we want to be healthy and perform our best. So I think we need to start thinking outside of the box, and, as we say, the whole athlete, look at the inside out, as you found.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, thank you so much. You've been such a blessing to me in my life and getting me on the right track. I'm so happy that we met in Kona.
And I have to say that when I met you at the swim start, we're standing there and it was for an hour and a half, I think, watching the swim start and all the pros. And then I ran into you like 5 times that day everywhere I went. So it was meant to be.
It was meant to be. Such a blessing. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. And reminds me to write down, I need to book my flight for Kona because I need to go either way and watch everybody and be there on the sidelines. So we will be there. I'll be looking forward to see how your race experiences this year. So keep me in touch.
I will. Talk to you later. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening to the Whole Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at wholeathletepodcast.com. You can help us continue and grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and see you next time.